let's have fun, really. And
That's good.
very happy to welcome here super mega star rock star from Steli Efti from Close.io. I feel happy and proud to have you here, man. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. To be honest with you, I arrived yesterday night to New York from Germany, and this morning I woke up and I had such pain in the throat. I felt terrible. And I looked at my calendar and I was trying to figure out what are the things that I can move around and what are the things I can. I look at this event, I was like, I cannot move this around. We've had announced it on Facebook. So I'm relying on your great energy to make me feel better. So this is very selfish of me. I'm going to have this chat with you, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be like medicine for my body and soul.
I'm giving so much energy. I was sharing with Steli just before we started. I remember when I started on SaaS, I didn't have a clue what to do. And I said to just check this guy. He's got full of energy. And it was this guy who was you, who they told me to watch this from Pioneers, the pitch that the talk that you do in Pioneers. And seriously, man, I've been trying to at least inspire, copy by you, and I'm not the only one. I think a lot of people from Spain, obviously from Greece, and you're such a fighter to go to the US, fight against the CRM companies. Tell me how all this energy has been growing. What did you grow through your mind? And just share with everyone how did you do it?
A lot of ignorance and a ton of arrogance, right? So you take those two things together and you have a pretty potent mix. For me, honestly, so I grew up in Germany, right? But I grew up in an immigrant factory worker family, single mom, raised three boys on her own. And I, hated school. So by the time that I was 17, 18, I decided to drop out and start my first business. I got lucky, as many times people do the first time they try something, fortune favors the bold. So the first thing I did worked out pretty well. And then I was filled with confidence. So I started a few other businesses and those worked out well. So I thought that I was pretty amazing. And then here I am, 24 years old. I have an idea for a tech company. And I had no background in technology. I knew nobody who did know anything about tech or software, and was full of piss and vinegar, tons of money made in other small businesses. And I was like, fuck it, I'll buy a one-way ticket to San Francisco. I'll fly over there and I'm going to start a great adventure. And my internal plan, honestly, was like, give me 1 or 2 years and I will have changed the world. I'll be Time Magazine Person of the Year and Steve Jobs' best friend. Now, I don't want to ruin the surprise or suspense, but it didn't quite work out that way. But the reason I went was I was young, I had nothing to lose. I'd tasted a lot of success. And I thought I had this brilliant idea that would change the world. So I was like, fuck it, let's go over there and let's make it happen. Now, obviously, things didn't turn out to be as easy as I anticipated them being. And I was not as good as I thought I was, right? So I had to clash. My ideas and my vision and goals had to clash with reality. And so I had to go through some painful times before I could learn my lessons, but we may or may not get into that. But that's how I got to move to the US. And this was now exactly 12 years ago, April 2007, right? So this is a long time ago. And 2007, 2006, I don't know. It's a long time, more than 10 years now. So time flies. And here I am, speaking with a fellow European.
Good. Did you have you have your families full in the US? You established in the US. Any plans to come back to Europe to live?
Yeah. So I have a lot of family in Europe. I spend a ton of time every year in Europe. Like I would say probably about like 4 months of the year I'm traveling in Europe, and I spend a lot of time with family. So I don't feel like I'm completely like left Europe. And honestly, I'm in this weird spot in my life where, I now realize that I've come to peace with the fact that I don't fully feel at home anywhere, right? But I feel at home to certain degrees. So part of me is very American and I love the US. I love living here. Part of me is very Greek and I yearn the Greek culture, and I love that part of it. And part of me is very German, So
it's a nice mixture.
It's a pretty wild mix. So everywhere I am, there's things I really love and things that I don't appreciate as much. But there's not like one place that I'm like, I'll never leave this place and this is going to be home forever. Right now, I love living in the U.S. I love that I'm sure it would be different if I didn't travel as much. But because I travel as much, I don't miss Europe heavily. I feel like I'm sort of, part European, part American, and I'm mixing both things up quite heavily. My children, the same thing. They're spending a ton of time every summer with different family members and vacations and grandparents and all that. So they're not totally disconnected from what's going on in Europe.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Stan. For me, energy as a sales guy, we're going to have a lot of people saying, no, you are whatever. Tell me, how do you cope with the no's? How do you hustle as you are the king of the hustle? And what recommendations do you give to your team members, yourselves? And if you want to share a few points on that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. So first of all, disclaimer, because I think a lot of people that know me from my content, or even worse, when they know me from being on stage, they assume that I'm walking into every room, kicking in the door, screaming at people, right? They think I'm like that 24/7, and I'm not, right? I really am not. It doesn't mean that it's not part of who I truly am. I'm not playing or acting. It's just that it's not the only part of my personality. I'm not always 100, X screaming at people. I'm not. So for me, I had to cultivate how to deal with rejection because I enjoyed interacting with people. I enjoyed connecting with people. I enjoyed learning about communication and convincing people and leading teams or individuals to accomplish a certain goal. Those things always came natural to me. But I never enjoyed being rejected, right? That's something, some people, and very few people that I meet, that just they're missing a gene or something. They're so uniquely unaware and don't care emotionally about how people react to them. They're just like, they have a goal and they just go forward, and it doesn't faze them at all when people think they're stupid or reject them or push back on them or tell them no. I was never that person. So what I had to do, I just had to realize, I think, deep down, I realized early on that in order for me to accomplish the things I wanted to accomplish, I would have to learn to suck it up and deal with rejection. And I just had to figure out little game. At the beginning, it was little games, and over time, it was just retraining my brain and my conditioning to react differently to when people reject me, right? So I'll give you a simple example and a practical tip. I very early on when I started doing cold calls, and I'm like 18 years old now, I'm cold calling customers. I realized that if I focused on success, like if I told myself all I want to do is, let's say, book 4 appointments every day or 5 appointments every day. If I focused on that, the thing that I realized was that sales is it's not static, right? It fluctuates. There's an average, but you don't get the same results every single day. Things are very different on a day-by-day basis. So I realized that some days I would have a good day, and the first 5 calls I made were all fire, and I scheduled 5 calls much faster than I thought. When I did that, since I accomplished my goal, I would be like, well, fuck it. I already got my goal done. Time to go home and relax today. My goal is accomplished. But then the next day, I would have a below average day. And here I am making my 100 calls to make my 5 appointments, and I still have 0 appointments done. So really quickly, I think after a short period of time in sales, I realized if I focus on the outcome, I'm going to stop when things are going well, and I'm going to be in trouble when things are going poorly. So I turned it around and I did something that's very basic, which is focus on the input versus the output. So I thought, hey, if I know that on average, if I make 100 calls, I should be able to schedule 5 appointments. All I'm going to focus on every single day is to make the 100 calls. That's success. Some days I might schedule 2 demos. Some days I might schedule 0. Some days I might schedule 15. It doesn't fucking matter. I'm just going to focus on rewarding myself or measuring progress in terms of my input. So I would start every day, and I would do it really old school. I would take a piece of paper, and I would draw 100 little boxes on that piece of paper. And every dial I made, I would check off one box, right? Simple, basic shit. And then it didn't matter if that call went well or not, if somebody picked up or not, I would see progress. Every call was a little bit more progress towards my goals. And I pushed this idea further. At some point, I started not just focusing on dials, but I started focusing on rejections. So I took a big bottle, a big empty bottle. I don't know if it was a wine bottle or champagne bottle, like just a massive thing. It was empty. I went to the bank and I got, I don't know how many, but a shit ton of like pennies. And then every time somebody told me no, rejected me or hung up, I would throw a penny in the bottle. And my mindset was, when this bottle fills up, I'm going to be rich, right? No matter what happens, if I'm able to get more rejection than other people, it means that, by default, I'm going to have more success as well, because it's impossible for everybody to reject me. I was, talented enough to not be in a situation where every single person I talked to said no to me. So all I had to do is kind of train myself to see rejection as progress, to see action and activity as progress, and focus on the things I was able to control and that helped me to be consistent, versus focusing on the outcomes that were mostly out of my control on a day-by-day basis. Not over long periods of time, if you take an average of a month or of a quarter, but in the day-to-day of the highs and lows of sales, I could not let the results run my life or run how I felt. So I had to turn it around and just focus on my activities, my actions, rather than the results on that short of a timeline. And that really made a big difference. And then, the other thing is, it's like a contact sport. The more you get hit, the more resistance you get, the less of a significance it has to be hit once in a while, the better you are on your defenses, and eventually you're able to go into full contact sport without, crying all day long over your little bruises and all that. So over a lifetime of doing sales and being rejected and dealing with rejection, today it's harder to faze me, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't faze me. It doesn't mean I like it. When somebody rejects me today, I still do not like it, right? It still feels shitty inside. I just have learned that that's part of the game. And over a long period of time of practicing and exposing myself to it, I've come to be able to deal with a lot more rejection than the average person.
Woohoo! Woohoo! I hope everyone is taking note of that. Tell me a little bit, what are you doing today at Close? Do you set up any marketing? Do you still doing some cold calling, or you just go for the big accounts? Are you raising money? Are you bootstrapping? Are you selling? Just tell me a little bit, what do you do in Close.io and what is Close.io, whoever doesn't know it.
For those who don't know, Close.io is an inside sales CRM that we've built specifically for small and medium-sized businesses, for startups, any kind of team that sells through the phone or email, sells through virtual demos. So you don't go out and knock on doors. You don't have a field sales force. You do inside sales. Any small and medium-sized team that does selling mainly through the phone and email and cares deeply about sales productivity, more so than reporting, more so than security, more so than integrations. What you want is your salespeople and yourself to crush it, to close more deals, to make more revenue. We've built the best CRM in the world for you. We have thousands of customers all around the world. We're highly profitable for the past 4 years and growing. And so right now we're not planning on raising any external money, which is exactly the position you're in when everybody wants to give you money. It's kind of funny, right? When you need the money, nobody wants to give it to you. And when you don't need it every day, there's like not a single week where VCs don't email or cold call me and try to pitch me on getting money from them. So that's it in terms of the business. My job, we don't do any cold calls for Close right now. We don't do any outbound sales. It's all inbound. And so, woohoo. And so my main job at Close, the main two things that I'm responsible for right now is that to a large degree, I represent the brand. I'm the person behind the brand. So I do a lot of public speaking. I do a lot of writing. I'm involved a lot with the marketing side and the promotional side of things, of creating a lot of energy and positive love from our customers for the brand. I do, and then the other part of it is that I spend a lot of time with hiring and recruiting and with coaching and helping and serving the people that work in my company. So about 20% of my time is probably marketing related. About 20% is probably random shit, like whatever you can imagine, any kind of thing that's going on. And then 60% of my time is really hiring, recruiting, coaching, and managing and leading the people on the company.
From most of the people who is in the group, it's, I would say, medium smaller companies like myself. I would say like 5 to 10 guys. There are like some agencies and Growth Hacker. What do you recommend to start with once you're starting, like just to get the first 1,000 users, how to get the first 1,000 customers? Tell me a few points on that, and then how you go to the next level, which is where we will be.
Yeah, so I think for the first, the milestones that I would set is the first 10 customers, 100, and then 1,000, right? Those are kind of the buckets that I think are real milestones, and where you'll have to probably switch up some things or change organizationally how you approach things. I think for the first 10 customers, you have to do whatever it takes, right? There's no real hacks here. There's no real shortcuts. Nothing here probably will be elegant and beautiful. It's going to be messy and dirty and awkward and not ideal. But my biggest advice is to look at the simplest places to go. So first, you're always going to look for friends, family, connections, people you have a relationship with, and try to approach them, not necessarily in the early days. A good hack that I can throw out there, or a way of thinking about it, is that the first 10 customers, I would not even approach them as pitching them directly to purchase my service. I would approach them to give me advice, right? You ask for money, they give you advice. You ask for advice, they might give you money, right? So when you're very early and you haven't developed things, especially if you're not selling to an audience that you already know, you've already cultivated, or you're already very knowledgeable about, a great way to go about it is to ping people that could be your potential buyers. Tell them, hey, we are building a brand new technology. We're innovating in your space. You're an expert. You have a long career in this field. We want to ask for 10, 15 minutes of your time to show you our new technology or tell you what we're building and get your expert advice. You'd be surprised how many people like to give expert advice, right? Everybody likes to be an expert. Everybody likes to give advice. And so when you approach people that way, they don't have that the guard up where they're like, well, they want to sell me something I don't want to buy. They think, oh, this is a new innovative startup and they want advice. And I'm going to be a startup advisor here, right? So that's much sexier. So, and it's also the truth. If you approach it the right way, you do want to ask questions and you do want to listen and you want their advice, right? But the way you potentially get to their money is by starting with that. So you tell them a little bit about what you do, and then you ask them lots of questions about how they think about the problem and what solutions are out there and what they've seen work or not work and what their concerns would be if they were, an advisor to your startup, how they would sell this. Like, I would flat out ask them, hey, if you were my co-founder, how would you get your first 10 customers? Who would you email? How would you pitch them? What would be the messaging? What's the pricing? Like, these people are experts. Your potential future buyers, there's nobody that has more knowledge about how to build your product and how to market and sell it than them. So just go to them directly and ask for that advice. And then something beautiful will happen. Sometimes they're going to be very critical and they're going to tell you, I don't think this is a real problem, or I'm not sure you could really sell this, or for whatever reason, they're not going to think it's a good idea or something that has real merit. In those cases, there's no real way to sell to them, and it would have been wasted effort anyways. Maybe down the line, you might be able to sell them, but right now, you're not going to be able to sell them. So just take that critical feedback on board and keep them in the loop. As you progress with your business or company, just keep sending them updates and letting them know how things go to work out. And as you see more success, maybe 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the line, boom, now the time is right. And also their cynicism about how early you are and how small and how unthoughtful your solution is might go away over time, right? But there's going to be some people that are going to be enthusiastic, hopefully. They're going to tell you what you're doing is awesome. In those cases, you can easily, at the end of the conversation, go, well, shit, since you think this is so awesome, how about you what would it take for you to become a customer? Wild question. If we wanted to get your company to buy our product, what would we have to do? Right? Just ask the question, what would it take for you to become a customer? And then let them enlighten you, right? And some of these relationships should be able to turn into customers. So You go to your friends, you go to your family, you go to potential buyers asking them for advice versus asking them directly to give you all their money. And I mean, depending on what you do in some businesses, I'm speaking from a B2B framework, right? I'm not speaking from an end consumer framework, which I know nothing about.
It's usually what we have in the group is B2B growth hacking.
There you go. So that's what you do to get your first 10 customers. And then the most important piece of advice that I have to give is once you're at the 10, 20, 30 customer range, you need to start paying a lot of attention to who are your most successful customers. And this is what most companies get wrong. They get to 30 customers, they push to get to 100, they push to get to 1,000, never slowing down, never stopping to assess, out of all these customers, who is the best customer that we have? And best measured by success, not by happiness. A happy customer is somebody that emotionally just is happy, right? That's cool. We all like that. But success is what truly matters. And success is measured by how much more value do they get versus what they are paying you? And how aware are they of that? They need to have both. They need to be getting a lot more value from you than what they're paying you, and they need to know it, right? They need to be very aware of it. And if you have that, then you have the potential and the foundation to build a really big business and scale. But too many times what startups will do, I mean, most startups will never get to 10 or 100 customers, so they'll die before. But for the people that we're talking to here, the hustlers, the growth hackers, they might get to 10 or 100 because they've figured out the basics of how to get something on the road. But then if you don't slow down to actually analyze your customers and realize who is the segment, the niche that gets the most success, you might fuck yourself down the line because you're getting more and more customers, and all of a sudden they start churning in higher and higher and higher numbers. And
guilty, man.
Like,
guilty. I'm fucking guilty.
Well, almost everybody is. And then what the fuck do you do, right? Because it's much harder to pivot when you're 1,000 customers, 10, 20, 30 employees, 1 million raised in. It's a much harder vehicle to pivot than when you're in the beginning, you have just 20 customers and 3 people, right? And you're bootstrapping, you're testing, experimenting, and you're scrappy. So I had a call a few weeks ago with a European startup, raised a Series B, 25 million, 3 founders, they're on my phone. They want to ask me for advice on how to go after different verticals. And at some point, I'm like, hey guys, how many customers do you have? They have enterprise level customers, big organizations that buy them. Like 100 customers. I'm like, awesome. Out of your 100 customers, who are your most successful 10 customers? Silence.
They didn't even know the names.
And then at some point, one of the founders goes, I don't know about you guys, but I have no fucking idea. And the other 2 went, yeah, we don't know. And I'm like, and that's why you want to look for new verticals. Because you're probably seeing churn, or you're probably seeing a problem of like expanding. You have customers where every customer could pay you millions of dollars. Why are they only paying you, 10K a year? And why you're looking for new verticals? It's because there's fundamental issues and they want to run away from them versus face them, which I get. We all have made that mistake. So my advice, especially to growth hackers, especially to people that are hustlers and that can get to the first 10 customers, first 20 customers, is that eventually once you've seen some proof, and the first, 10 to 100 customers, you want to go broad. Like you want to try different things and accept different types of customers. Right, you get whatever you can, and also gives you more data, gives you more experience, but you have to then slow down and really narrow in on who are our most successful customers, because then you want to double down and triple down and quadruple down on getting more of those. And you want to figure out who are our worst customers. And you want to make sure you stop fucking getting more of these types of customers, right? You don't do marketing, you don't do sales, and you don't do anything around acquiring bad customers. They're like toxic waste. It seems good at the surface, but it's going to destroy your business, right? We're one of the few SaaS startups that sometimes when a customer comes to us, like we'll say no to somebody that would pay us 10, 20, 30K a month. But we know the way their organization is structured, the way their usage is structured, the way their support and service needs are structured. We know we would only make a small margin in terms of profit, much smaller than getting 3 small customers, each paying us, 2, 3, 4K. Right? So we say no to top line revenue because it doesn't make profitable sense. So you want to make sure that you really pay attention. Who are our worst customers? Who are our best customers? And you stop doing the things that get you bad customers, and you double down on the things that get you successful customers. Because then scaling to 1,000, it doesn't even matter if that's going to be slow or fast, because you're growing with such quality that it compounds, right? If you have 1,000 successful customers, 1,000 customers where every customer gets a lot more ROI from your solution than what they're paying you, and they all realize it, I guarantee you're going to be a $100 million ARR business, right? You're going to get there. Maybe in 2 years, maybe in 5, maybe in 7. But having 1,000 highly successful customers is incredibly hard to do, incredibly hard to do. So it doesn't really matter how quickly you get there. If you get the right type of customers and you expand from there, I find that growth has a quality that starts really compounding. Things become easier and easier and easier. It's like rolling down a hill, versus what I see in many cases, especially in Silicon Valley, where we have money to throw away and get to revenue numbers and get things up and to the right, no matter if it's good quality or not, where you might make things look good and go up and to the right for like a year or two, but then you're just setting yourself up for a world of trouble. Eventually, you're going to have to face reality. And then what do you do, right? What do you do when you have 4 board members and 20 million raised and 100 employees, and you don't know who your successful customers are, and you're churning customers left and right? You're fucked in that moment. So that's my biggest piece of advice, is not just how do you get there, but what are the important things to pay attention to.
That sounds amazing. And one of the hacks I remember learning from you that it's been just impossible, probably because I'm afraid, that I learned from you is, when you have a churn customers, just give them a call and give them a discount, something like, tell me a little bit how you do it, because man, it's just fucking difficult.
Yeah, it is. But, and also, I mean, in an ideal case, you'll know that customers are about to churn before they're churning. You instrument and you track and you get in front of them when you see they're not logging into the product anymore, when you're seeing they're going to the canceling page in your app multiple times, right? But even if you don't do that, when a customer cancels, in our case, for instance, what we do today is, we have a little box that a customer can tell us why. And back in the day, we used to call every single cancellation. I did myself. Now we're a big size of business where that's not feasible anymore. But one thing we do is we push that comment and cancellation into our company chat. So every employee of every cancellation reads the reason why a customer is leaving, right? Radical transparency. We're not hiding that shit away. We're just exposing it. So whenever the reason is a reason that we think is something we can affect or impact, we'll reach out and we'll try to turn things around. And sometimes, people tell us something where we're in agreement with them. We're like, yeah, they're right. We cannot do this. They should leave. They should go. But calling people, it's in the moments of conflict where you can make the biggest impact, in my opinion. I've talked about this when your app is down, or when you have a big bug, or when something breaks. That's the moment. That's a huge opportunity, because usually most companies, what do they do in those moments? They hide. They don't answer the phone. They don't reply to email. They're like, they try to deal with the problem, and afterwards they hope people will forget. But if you pick up the phone, if you proactively, like we had this many years ago where we had some challenges with scalability, and we had 2 years ago or so, two and a half years ago, we had a downtime of 2 hours, which was terrible for CRM. And what did we do? We called every single of our top 100 customers. We called them proactively. We didn't even wait for them to get in touch with us. We called. And when I say we, I mean myself, right? And somebody else, apologizing, telling them, we fucked up, telling them what we're doing to fix it. We were responding to every email. We got in front of every single customer. And the funny thing is, in many of these cases, once we talked to them and they thanked us for being transparent, at least, and they thanked us for fixing the problem quickly, I was always asking people, hey, we want to deepen this relationship. Did we show up when things were bad? Did we deal with the situation well? The customer would tell me, yeah, I have to say many times, we don't get that good of a service. I'm still unhappy that this happened, but I'm really glad the way you dealt with it. Cool. Do you think that this is still a long-term relationship? Do you still believe in the relationship long-term? Many of the customers would say, yeah, I still believe in it long-term. And then I would go, well, okay, I want to give you a better price. for that long-term relationship, right? I want to recommit and reinvest in this relationship. And what we did is we would sell people 1, 2, 3 year contracts with prepaid.
2, 3 years contract, man. I'm even thinking for me difficult.
So, but this is in a moment where we had downtime. And instead of just calling to apologize, we called, we apologized, we fixed, and then we used it as a business opportunity, right? We use it as an opportunity since we're already engaging with the customer to deepen the relationship. Now, I know that many people will find this crazy, and that's why, or difficult to imagine. The reason I'm sharing this is not to brag, because there's really nothing to brag here, but the reason I'm sharing this is to give you a different perspective. Like when things are difficult, instead of running, you need to show up because everybody else is running. So if you just stand there and you're approachable and you're reachable for your customers, you're going to make an impression. You're going to stand out, right? The same thing with like product demos. I always tell people when things go wrong in a product demo, I love it. Like that's the best thing ever. Why? Because 99% of people, when they give product demos and there's a bug or an error, they are all flustered. I'm sorry, this never happens. Oh my God, this never happens. Bullshit, right? How about using it as an opportunity to stand out? Like if I click something, there's a bug or an error message, I'll tell the customer during a live demo, I'll say, this is perfect. This is an actual bug. I did not plant this. I didn't expect this, but this gives us a great opportunity to show you how we do support. So whenever you run into any issue, here's what I want you to do. You go up and to the right, you click the little support chat. Boom, now I'm talking to one person on our support team. Here's how I describe the problem. I tell them, hey, I'm giving a live demo here. Can you help me out? Here's what they send in response. And what do? I show people how to get help. I teach them how to ask for good support because many people don't know how to ask for support. And I am making myself stand out in a moment where there's a crisis, where there's something going wrong. Instead of me feeling all weird about it, I feel totally normal. So the audience or my prospect will think, yeah, that's normal. Sometimes there's a bug. There's not the end of the world. So your emotions translate over to the prospect. When things go wrong, there's a real opportunity to stand out and to deepen relationship with your customers. And most companies will never use those opportunities.
I love the fact that you take a problem, you make it an advantage, and see that you are super flexible, you're super determined. And I love basically your energy, and it's just, the fundamentals that you go around, how it's hustle. Yeah, we are sales guys, we're hustling, but also I can see that you are so analytical. When did you change? When did you swap for that hustling on the phone to be more analytical with the customers to understand? Is it when you went to the US before we were just taking calls and you use Mixpanel, Heap Analytics? Just tell me a little bit how you analyze your users and customers.
Yeah, so let me actually plug into my Power because I'm getting a warning message here that I'm going to be disappearing in a second. So I don't know. I don't know if I would use the word super analytical or I think mindful, thoughtful is really more the word that I would use if I have to describe the things that have changed for me. I think that, especially when you're super young, and I'll make some overgeneralization of maybe just saying when I was young, it was easier for me to waste my time or to be very free with my time because I had so much of it, right? And so I could devote all my energy and all my time to my work, and I had tons of energy and tons of time. I think over my career, over the years of my career, I realized how much of my time I was wasting on things that didn't really matter or didn't really create impact. And the constraints of my time started to increasing, right? As I get older and as I have a family and children, as I have a bigger business, more customers, more employees, more responsibilities, as I'm a more public figure and there's more hundreds and hundreds of people every day sending me emails, asking for questions, asking for help, for advice. As the demand of my time goes up, it's a more precious resource. So I have to be more mindful on how I use my time and how I look at things. And I think it was a very gradual process of just becoming much more thoughtful and mindful about my time and my prospects and customers' time. And this is also this is a way I judge salespeople or people in general. When somebody sends me an email and the email is 20 pages long, I know this person is not mindful of their time, so they're not mindful of my time either. And I cannot have that. I cannot have somebody coming in destroying my time. So I will not engage in a relationship with somebody like that. Versus if I have someone that displays mindful and thoughtfulness and shows me that they are valuing their own time and my time, those are the people I want to engage with, because I know that 99 out of 100 times, those people are the people that create a lot of success for themselves and others, right? So I think I've just gotten a lot more mindful and thoughtful. And, instead of, back in the day, every problem I approached from there's a wall and there's my head. What's going to be harder, the wall or my head? And I would just run against those walls. And because I was young and healthy, I was able to break through some of these walls with pure force. But as I'm getting older and my headaches started increasing and, my body didn't recover as quickly, I started thinking, I know I'm a hard-headed person, but maybe before I start running against this wall, maybe I'll just use my eyes to see if there's a door anywhere, right? And so whenever I can today, I'm just going to take a minute, find a door and walk through the wall versus having to crush through it. And so things have gotten easier, and I think that for me, it just took time, and it also took the age where my time is more restricted. So I had an increased forcing function that made me realize that I want to be really, really mindful how I spent my time and how I invested and how I do that with my customers, right? I don't do 60-minute customer calls. I don't do 1-hour lunch meetings. I do 15-minute calls. Doesn't matter if you are a multi-million-dollar customer, if you're somebody famous, if you're an investor. Doesn't matter who you are. 15, 20 minutes, typically we're able to accomplish everything we want. We just stop fucking around and we get to the point and we see how can we work together and how can we accomplish X, Y, Z. And I figured out that what I was able to do in 60 minutes, and now I'm able to do in 15 minutes. And probably somebody else is able to do in 5 minutes. Many times today, Heaton Shah and I have a podcast called The Startup Chat. And Heaton taught me that in many cases, even a 15-minute call is too much. That question in an email, you could answer in 2 minutes or 3 minutes versus having to talk to them for 50 minutes on the phone. And today that I've built up such a big library of content, oftentimes when people want to jump on a call with me, I just push back and go, just tell me what is your question, what is your challenge? And 9 out of 10 times I have 3 videos, a podcast, and a blog post. And I'm like, watch all this, consume all this, and then come back to me when you have follow-up questions. And most of the time, though, those pieces of content address most of the questions that people have. So I think mindfulness and thoughtfulness is the thing that has really grown in my career and life. I'm more critical, I'm more strategic than I used to be, but I'm not the most analytical person in the world. I'll admit that.
That sounds amazing. Just to finish up and wrap up, who is your king? Who is the one that you're looking for? Me, is you looking, I'm looking ahead and I see you. Who is the person you look ahead and you see, oh man, that's super amazing?
Yeah, so I don't think that this person is in a business setting. So there's many people I admire, lots of people that have nothing to do with business, that I just admire their thought, admire the way they live their life. In terms of business, to me, one of the most inspiring founders/CEOs is Jeff Bezos. And Jeff Bezos is nothing like me, and I'm nothing like him.
No,
and I'm never gonna be anywhere near the way that he has built his empire, right? I'm not trying to be him. But there's one specific thing that impresses me about him. It's not even the billions.
It's not the table. It's not the 99.
It's not the 99 cent. I'm not that cheap. I'm not that cheap.
I know.
I'm also not as I'm not anywhere near his IQ. But the one thing I admire that I think I have gotten better and I'm building on top of it, and he's definitely one of the inspirations, is long-term thinking. One thing I admire about him is that he, at a time where, Amazon is one of the first kind of bubble tech companies, internet startups, right? It was Amazon, eBay, Yahoo were the big success stories of the first bubble. And if we look around, really the only player still in town is Amazon. And Amazon is still a player that's at the top. And one thing that I admire is that Jeff Bezos early on said, we're not going to look for what's changing. We're not going to be looking around trying to adopt to change. We're going to ask ourselves, what is never going to change? And that's going to be our North Star. And for Amazon, it was people will never want to pay more money for the same product. and people will never want to wait longer for the same product. So if we take these two things and we say we're going to use all innovation, all technology, all invention to get things cheaper and faster, we will be golden forever, right? That's a North Star that's long enough. So that long thinking, like thinking in decades versus in weeks or months, is to me one of the things I've observed that a lot of people I admire have in common. They have uncommon long-term thinking in the way they approach things. And I've gotten much better at this. I would say that especially when it comes to relationship, I've started to really think long-term. I have a blog post where I talk about I recruited somebody. I was calling somebody every month for 4 years.
I know about that, Steli. I know about that.
Before I was able, and you know about this, before I was able to hire him. So when it comes to relationships, I'm very, very long-term. But there's still many things that my time horizon is a few months, sometimes a year, and not like 10, 20, 30 years. And I admire people that have that level of imagination and discipline and also patience, right, to think that long term. So he's definitely a person that I admire deeply and I try to learn from when it comes to that.
We're going to try to get him in the show.
Oh,
next challenge, man.
Why not?
It was my dream to have you in the show, and now you're here. And I wanted to say to everyone that I have sent many emails to Steli. He had answered. He had directed me to Wilfredo, and it didn't work. And I just want to tell to everyone, just be thoughtful how you approach the people. And I think the worst way to approach Steli is via email because it just doesn't work. I think you should have to approach whoever you want to approach with love and show like you really care, you have built something, and that time is worth your time. And you have a friend here in Spain. Whatever you need, I will be happy to give it to you, man. You're such an inspiration. And if you want to share anything else with the team, it's open. And just give me a shout.
Well, let me first thank you for inviting me. This was a pleasure to get to know you better as well, right? So, and I especially, the one thing that stood out for me, and one of the reasons why I agreed to chat with you here is that when I watched some of your videos, the word love was used way above the average, There you go, send emails with love. The way you use love comes through in a way that stands out. So I was like, this seems to be an awesome person that I want to connect with and build a relationship with.
Thanks.
So when it comes to me, if people want to reach out and get in touch with me, I'll give a little nugget here. If anybody here thinks I need more of Steli content in my life, just send me an email with this subject line, though. It has to say, bundle motherfucker. Right?
Bundle motherfucker. Good.
Bundle motherfucker. And I'm going to send you back a link that has all my books, all my templates, all my content beautifully structured and organized for free for you as a little thank you for your attention and your time. There you go.
I will certainly do that. And I love that ending, man. You're always surprising everyone.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure and honor.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.